Welcome back, Professor Odinkalu, former chairman, National Human Rights Commission, joins us next on the program. Good morning, Prof. Thank you for joining us today on the program.
Good morning, Chamberlain. How are you?
Oh, fine, thank you. Here, well, so many
Happy
things.
New Year.
Thank you. Good to see you as well. So many things going on in the country today, but different perspectives. People internalize all of these things differently. But for you, I mean, observing from where you are, what is your understanding of what is happening at the moment? Perhaps from a security perspective, if you will.
I'm not a security person. I'm only a poor citizen of a struggling country. There is no rocket science about this. President Buhari is out to lunch. It's as simple as that. This is not rocket science.
But in terms of how different states, what are they coming to the table with? Because they were equally elected into office to bring certain things to the table by way of providing solutions, which they promised before being elected. How do you think they are also, doing their bit in all of this?
That's a dangerous road to travel, sir, with all due respect. Yesterday, I saw the statement by Garba Shehu saying that people like you and our sister Marco in the media should go and capture the bandits or so-called bandits. Maybe you should have done your cape and go head out and start doing that. But there's a sense of profound irresponsibility about the way about the glibness of the regime in place now at the moment. At what is clearly a metastasizing crisis, insecurity crisis in the country. And no, it cannot be outsourced to the states. The Constitution is pretty clear about that. All the security services have only one operational chief, and that's the president. You're talking about the police, the army, the navy, the SSS, the NIA, the DIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency, the Directorate of Military Intelligence, National Security Advisor. Everyone reports through one channel to one person. And the laws are pretty clear. If you look at the Armed Forces Act, if you look at the Police Act, if you look at the Constitution from sections 214 to 220, the president is not just commander-in-chief. He is the operational head of all of these agencies. They all report to him. So the governors are actually quite limited in what they can do. I'm not saying that the governors are not capable of inflicting damage on the system. I'm saying a president who is present will contain that damage. The tragedy of our current crisis is that President Buhari is neither present nor capable of providing leadership. Even worse, he does not care, in my respectful view. You cannot have, without profound respect, personnel of the Presidential Guards Brigade being killed in Abuja and the president trundling off to Liberia to deliver a lecture on security. Are you serious?
With respect to security and the economy as well, because we've had several lawyers, senior lawyers as a matter of fact, who have told us on the program that governors, yes, they can call that meeting where the president is expected to attend if he fails to call the meeting. And they can also speak up about what is going on concerning security. And if he fails to call the meeting, they can call the meeting. They can have a say in the system. So is that to say that that doesn't apply and cannot have any impact whatsoever if they decide to put their foot down and say, we need to do something about that certain things need to empower them a lot more concerning security?
First of all, I don't know which lawyer said that. I don't care what kind of lawyer that is. That person is misplaced and that person is wrong. I think they are reading a different kind of constitution. There are no governors, first of all, in the National Security Council. The composition is pretty clear in the Constitution. Secondly, the governors are only part of the National Council of States, which actually does not, it serves a totally different purpose, and the National Economic Council, which is chaired by the Vice President. Now, the job of the President is a lot of things in one job. It's not just one job. The President is a party leader. The President is a head of government. The President in the current administration is also petroleum minister. The president is a chief of government. He's a diplomat as well, and lots more. The president is also a commander-in-chief. Now, there are different parts of that job can be hived off. So the president as a party leader, somebody else can do that job. President as head of government, somebody else can do that job. President as a diplomat, he can deploy the foreign minister or some other people to do that. There is only one element in the job of the president that can never be delegated as long as the president is terrestrial. That is commander-in-chief. If the president is in hospital, the president is under life support, you cannot delegate the job of the commander-in-chief. And when the commander-in-chief is as lazy and uncaring as the current one that Nigeria has, the country is exactly where it deserves to be. So anybody who is telling you that governors can come together and do that they are simply reading from the wrong textbook. Period. There can only ever be one commander-in-chief at any point in time. At the moment, Nigeria has a very lazy commander-in-chief and an uncaring commander-in-chief. That is my settled view.
Incidentally, we were having a conversation with Mr. Laddie Thompson earlier on, where he, talked about approaching this intellectually, saying that he would like...
This is not an intellectual problem, sir.
Well, let me just land. So he was saying that, well, we need to find intellectual ways to approach this. Yes, there's the brute part and all of that, but we need to think critically about what is going on and how to not just, react, but get on top of this. But quickly, I'd just like to fall back to a statement you made about Mr. Garba Shehu, the statement he put out. Were you referring to the July 24th statement in response to that video where he was saying that, terrorism is a global scourge that must be fought by all actors? Because you referred to him expecting journalists to go out there. Is that the statement you were referring to?
Yes.
Okay. So it's July So it's July the 24th,
it's a global
not
scourge.
Yesterday.
It's a global scourge. Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Well, getting my... this is the morning. I'm not particularly a morning person.
It happens. So
yeah.
back to the question I was raising. So in terms of dealing with this now, I mean, you are a professor. You have a background in law, human rights activist. And there's been that question around what is the thinking amongst intellectuals, people who have at least been in the system. You have studied the Nigerian system quite well. Is there something... at least it may be a thinking, something to present here, because I think so far it will look like, or at least at this point, we need all hands on deck. So what's the thinking amongst intellectuals? What do you think we need to be doing right now?
I don't think this is actually a situation for leadership. If the point you're making is that we tend to default to so-called operations in these issues, and there isn't sufficient the interface between intelligence and leadership and operations is not usually properly managed. That is a long-standing tradition in Nigerian security methods, and that's quite substantially because the reason the system defaults to operations rather than a more integrated approach to managing these things is because operations is lucrative. People make money by creating every sense of emergency and asking for money to deal with those, rather than thinking through the things that need to be done. That's the transactionalization of security and insecurity in Nigeria is pretty well established. And that is partly why it's difficult to end this. People see that this is an avenue to make money, and they can't stop making money from it. That is not to say, however, that leadership cannot fix that. And that's the biggest thing here. That's why I say this is not an intellectual problem. Look, if you go to the Cabinet Office, which is in the office of the SGF, the amount of literature, historical and current, analytics from all of the agencies is astonishing. You saw this report, was it yesterday or thereabouts, from the House of Representatives, that the SSS had, and I insist on calling it SSS, not DSS, because SSS is what is created by the law. That law is the National Security Agencies Act. It is entrenched in Section 3185 of the Constitution, cannot be amended except by extraordinary means. A decree or a presidential act cannot change the name to DSS. So it's SSS actually. And calling it DSS is unlawful. It's wrong. So when I say SSS, please don't try to correct me and say DSS. Now, the problem here is that SSS apparently sent lots of reports, not one, not two, not 20, not 30, to the presidency about Kuje prisons. What happened? So this is, people don't read these reports, and Nigerian politicians are happy to tell you they don't read documents, they don't even read newspapers. So that's the point here, that there is illiteracy masquerading as leadership and governance, and that's the consequence we are left with.
Prof, when you talk about leadership and the president being commander-in-chief and is responsible for security, it also goes back to the governors. And I wonder if you're exonerating them here, or you're saying that they're limited in a certain capacity. But they are still the chief security officers of their own states in their own right. So how helpless are they?
A governor cannot...
How helpless are they in the scheme of things? You know, what should they be doing that they're not doing?
If you go back to the Constitution or the Police Act, the governor cannot deploy a police commissioner, actually, without the say-so of the Inspector General, who is directly under the command of the president. A governor cannot deploy a brigade commander, a battalion commander, a platoon commander without the say-so of the president. That is the kind of federalism that we have configured. And people have been arguing for a decentralization of this command structure. It's not yet happened. So we cannot start by exonerating the president from his responsibilities. Are governors capable of toxic conduct? Yes. Kaduna State is an example. Imo State is an example. I think the governors in those states, with profound respect, are part of the problem in those states, not part of the solution. But I do think that those governors can be contained by a committed president, a president who is present and who is willing to provide leadership and who cares. We don't have that in this case. You have situations where Nigerian soldiers have been killed in tents. You have Guards Brigade being killed. The president goes off to another country. The flag is flying at full mast. Who does that?
Well, from the point of law, because, I mean, part of what they cited, which you disagree with, was actually Section 153(1). They talk about the National Police Council and that the governors can attend and the president can attend, and so they have a role in that regard. So do you maintain that the National Police Council, for instance, do they have any role whatsoever in the scheme of things?
The role of the Police Council actually is one thing, to meet occasionally, to ratify the appointment of the Inspector General of Police. It has absolutely no other role in the process. And the appointment of the Inspector General of Police is the business of the president. Governors cannot appoint an Inspector General. So I don't know what kind of law, but I've got to be perfectly honest with you. I no longer know law in Nigeria because it's voodoo. You know, people produce these things and call them law. Go back to the Constitution. There is only one role for the Police Council. It is appointment of Inspector General of Police. It doesn't do any other thing. And it is the Inspector General's appointment has to be done by the president. Governors will not appoint the Inspector General. They will not convoke a meeting to wrest powers from the president.
Well, the conversation now for a lot of the political leaders is elections. And it will seem that's the major thing. I mean, you see lots of governors barely even in their states, you know, moving around, trying to, you know, garner support either for their party as a whole or for their interests. But a lot of Nigerians are looking to the elections as perhaps a solution to the challenges we're facing. And that's why you see a lot of clamor on and off social media for various candidates. But for young people, for one at least, they've had lots of clamor asking people to go get their PVCs. And I'd like to ask you, really, first, is that the solution, or at least one of the solutions that we need as a nation? And two, if that is a solution, how then should the electorate approach it?
Look, elections are important, and they are all sorts of things. You know, celebration of civics, the celebration of nationhood, the place where citizens decide agendas periodically, whether it's 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, depending on the country. So I don't want to talk down elections. But as I speak to you, okay, there are lots of parts of Nigeria where elections cannot safely take place. INEC cannot safely deploy election officers in a lot of parts of Nigeria. And INEC is not being honest in not telling Nigerians that this thing is going to, splash on the fan pretty soon. You go to different parts of Nigeria, in Imo West, for instance, or in parts of Katsina or parts of Zamfara. I don't want to go on to talk about parts of in Kagarko, for instance, or in Jema'a, in southern Kaduna. It may be difficult to deploy election workers. And so I think we also we can walk and chew gum on this matter of elections. Talk of PVCs by all means. But also we need to ask brutal questions about why in places where citizens are being killed and security officers are not offering any protection, we are thinking that all of a sudden elections are going to be magic. Nigerian law school is under threat. And that is just, to go to Nigerian law school in Buhari, you've got to, if you're going from Abuja, you've got to pass the SSS training center in Lower Usman Dam. And it is pretty much a jogging distance there. How can Nigerian law school and Veritas University along that axis where you've got establishments of the major, most elite security services be at risk? And the president is not kicking backsides. And there are no consequences. Look, we've got an interior minister. Since 2015, we have had how many prison breakouts? You have a situation in which the medium security prison in Abuja has suffered this, and the interior minister is still on his job. I'm sorry, why is he not fired?
Well, your points clearly is that it cannot be business as usual. But we have to thank you very much indeed for your time, which, although you're not the morning person, but we managed to get you up today. Thank you very much, Professor Odinkalu.
Thanks a lot, my brother.